Thank you for listening to Two Heels and a Face Wrestling Podcast. If this is your first time joining us, my name is Charlie Vale. I am on Twitter at Chuck_Colorado. Big wrestling fan and native of the Chicagoland area where there's a lot of good wrestling going on. But this podcast that you're about to listen to is with my good friend and New Japan Pro Wrestling connoisseur and aficionado, Greg Biatoni. Greg Piatoni is on Twitter at GregNasty, just how you think you would spell it. And this podcast is not just to... We use Wrestle Kingdom 11 as an example. And I know what you're thinking, right? It's February. Wrestle Kingdom is already a month old. Wrestle Kingdom 11, is already a month old. But really this podcast is for the listener who wants to learn and know more about New Japan Pro Wrestling as a whole. So Greg is going to educates me on some things about New Japan Pro Wrestling and how they send people off to do excursions and how they interact with other promotions and the reputation and how Wrestle Kingdom is kind of building every year and what to expect at Wrestle Kingdom shows and what to expect at the regular pay-per-views. So he educates me, and hopefully this podcast will educate the masses on what to expect from New Japan Pro Wrestling and how it is different from other promotions. That's one of the things I like about wrestling right now is that there are so many different things you can grab from the buffet table of wrestling, and New Japan Pro Wrestling is just one of them. So don't go running away just because you hear Wrestle Kingdom 11. This is more using Wrestle Kingdom 11 as examples and the wrestlers who wrestled in the last 4 matches of that pay-per-view to explain more about New Japan Pro Wrestling as a whole. So if Wrestle Kingdom 11 got you into New Japan, you want to get into New Japan, this is the podcast for you to learn more about it so you can become more educated, have meaningful conversations with people, continue to watch, and continue to see these interesting characters progress. There's a lot of interesting characters such as Naito, whose first name I can't remember, but very, very interesting person. We talk about his journey and how he went from face to heel and just a lot of things like that. So strap it in, sit back, and listen to myself and Greg Piatoni educate you and hopefully educate you and then educate one of your friends that you talk to about New Japan Pro Wrestling. Hello, Greg. How are you today?
Doing well, Chuck. How are you?
I'm doing great. We just went through a roller coaster ride that is the last 4 matches of Wrestle Kingdom 11. How you feeling right now?
I'm feeling great. You're all probably maybe a little worn out after hearing so much about Wrestle Kingdom. Mm-hmm. It's been all over the place.
Yeah.
Even more so than past years. Wrestle Kingdom 9 was on American pay-per-view, but Wrestle Kingdom 11 to me still has the bigger presence with an American audience from what I'm seeing.
Is it? I feel like it's building every year. Is that true?
I would say so.
Okay. And then New Japan's catching up, right? We watched it on I bought a month of the streaming service, right? So that is a WWE idea that they just adapted. Mm-hmm. But they're catching up to kind of the mainstream, and then their efforts with like Ring of Honor too. That's good. So that you have the people overseas getting exposure. This podcast is for someone who is just unfamiliar with New Japan Pro Wrestling. The promotion itself, the style, the wrestlers involved, the way they do things over there is a bit different. It's a whole different culture, which you are very well versed in. So that's why we have you on Two Heels and a Face. And we're not going to sit here and break down every match because that's what people have been doing for like the last week or so, right? But we're going to talk about 4 matches specifically and then just talk about Wrestle Kingdom in general, New Japan in general, and why that's that, I guess, style. I guess really every promotion over there. Would you say they kind of have the same style or not? Or is New Japan a little different?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
I think I would say there are definitely similarities, but I also think that you are kind of getting different things out of a New Japan versus a Pro Wrestling Noah, Big Japan, All Japan.
Okay.
It's a whole world out there.
Yeah, so this is going to be a really good listen if you just are unfamiliar with that brand and that style. And, with the production value here and in the U.S., we get, like, tranced and sucked into only WWE, which is, and that's the way a lot of us grew up, which is fine. It's very apparent now that you can find different types of wrestling, and they're easily accessible, right? The streaming service. Like, it took me 4 clicks to get to Wrestle Kingdom 11 today. And it's to the point basically that it was in, it's not to the point where the Monday Night Wars were happening. But if you are sick of WWE, there is another, as we say, another buffet table right next to the WWE buffet table. If you're kind of just sick of that brand, or you can go find something else that you want, like a Lucha Underground, your local promotion, or like a New Japan like this. So if you are interested in New Japan and this style, and you want to learn more about it, that's why, we pay you the big bucks, which is free Sapporo, the consultant, to come in, GregNasty, and educate us a little bit. So I know that we had you on Lay at the Mat Down before the rebrand.
Yes.
Lay at the Mat Down was our old podcast, which is now a blog. And we talked a lot about New Japan there, and I believe we talked about kind of what got you into it.
Yeah.
So we don't need to revisit that, but I guess if you want to give me just a general synopsis and overview of what you thought of this specific Wrestle Kingdom show.
This Wrestle Kingdom, I will say straight off the bat, I thought the first half of the show was pretty inconsequential.
Okay.
Which is a big part of the reason why when I was texting with Chuck, I initially said, let's try to focus on these last 4 matches. Because I think a bulk of what's exciting, a bulk of what's big is contained in those 4 matches.
Okay.
That's not to say there's not good stuff in the undercard.
Yeah.
Like, that would be bold-faced lie to say that there was nothing good in the undercard. I just feel like maybe that's something you can just kind of go back to. If you are new to the product, I think these 4 matches give a really fucking good breakdown of, like, what the product is at its biggest.
Okay. Yeah, and that's what you said to me. I guess I had initially had the idea of just, like, watching the whole show, which is a 5.5-hour show. Very long show, but you brought up the idea of, like, let's just go through the last 4. Yeah. The last 4. So all those elements of New Japan Pro Wrestling and what makes it unique is in those last 4 matches, right? Yeah. Great. We can talk about just some observations that I had for the 4th to last match, which is a junior heavyweight title match.
Yep, 4th from the top.
4th from the top, yes. And I had some unique things kind of just pop out at me.
Oh, well, first, let's note that it was between the reigning champ, Kushida,
yes,
and the challenger, Hiromu Takahashi.
Correct. And I know, so I jump in there, and I know nothing about these people, right? So tell me a little bit about each of these people and kind of introduce them to a person who's never heard these names. And all the names sound very similar, too.
Yeah, that's definitely, I think, one of the harder things to get used to, like, coming from that American mindset, is just that, these names are all decidedly very much foreign to us.
Right.
So, like, a lot of similarities can either come, just out of the blue, or even to, like, some Japanese fans, some names are just very similar.
Yeah.
So, like, when you're kind of just getting used to a product, like, I know that I try to branch out when I can and watch other promotions. I've been watching Dragon Gate. I watch a couple women's promotions based in Japan, Stardom, Sendai Girls. So when I'm watching like promotions that I'm unfamiliar with, that is one of the hardest things for me initially, is just kind of keeping track of like who's who. Even if they make a great impression, it's tough when you don't have that kind of like that natural connection that you'd have with like, a language that you're more familiar with.
Right. Yeah. But, so one guy to make an impression on me, the first guy I saw had like an orange life vest.
Yeah.
And you said that. Yeah.
That was Kushida. And that kind of comes from his gimmick. I think especially when he was teaming with Alex Shelley, who you're probably familiar with.
Sounds familiar. Yeah.
Like for any TNA fans who are listening, he was a big part of that with Motor City Machine Guns, like in TNA, Ring of Honor, him and Chris Sabin.
Yep.
But so Kushida was teaming with Alex Shelley, and they were called the Time Splitters, and they had this like Back to the Future kind of gimmick. So essentially, Kushida is still Marty McFly. there was a Wrestle Kingdom, I think it was 2 years ago, where he came out in a DeLorean.
Okay.
So I think, yeah, that is one way to make a first impression on somebody on a big stage. But this time it was just the vest, and as you noticed a little bit later, his light-up boots.
Right.
The soles of his boots.
Similar to Naomi's light-up boots.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so that's just a gimmick that just, like, people just buy into, right? It's wacky, but people just don't care because he's so over.
Yeah, and I think, it's only really made evident during the entrances too. Like, as you notice, like in the match itself, it's not like Kushida was at any point concerned with driving a car a certain miles per hour in order to transcend the time-space continuum.
Right.
You know, he's just a wrestler, but like I think like you know, the entrance attire could definitely you know, spark something.
Yeah, I thought that he was wrestling Takahashi.
Yeah,
I thought that Takahashi looked like. Do you know who Kabuki Joe is?
No.
This is like a throwback. So there was this N64 game called War Gods, and it was a fighting game, and there was this guy named Kabuki Joe, but really it was just like the red, I think like the red fur around the boots.
Okay.
And kind of like in his costume that really stuck out to me. But yeah, so these are the first time like I'm seeing these guys, so I'm trying to relate a name that's hard to pronounce with just like, I'm trying to like kind of match, okay, like, you know, Kushida was the Back to the Future guy and like things like that. So that's kind of what I was trying to take in. But my question to you is, fourth match from the top, and there's like a sunset flip powerbomb to the outside, is it usually like that intense, or was this Wrestle Kingdom like busting out all the main stuff, or is New Japan like every show like that? Your fourth match from the top is going to be pretty great. Okay,
I think with New Japan, you're typically, for the bigger shows, even you're usually looking at like a two or maybe 3 match card.
Okay.
It's one of those things you can always count on the Intercontinental title match to be a big thing. Mm-hmm. The heavyweight title match is obviously going to be big. And in recent, I think like the last 2 years, the Never title match has been pretty big. And we'll get into that a little bit later, what that is. But interestingly, the junior heavyweight title match, this is probably the highest it's been in years on a Wrestle Kingdom card.
Okay.
The junior heavyweight title match is usually kind of relegated to the undercard. So I think its placement on this show is pretty indicative of how the company feels about Kushida and how the company feels about Hiromu Takahashi.
Yeah. Is the junior, I feel like they try to work in weight classes into a lot of stuff, but almost, do they really matter, or is that just kind of in the name to make it feel more like a shoot? Because like the junior heavyweight title, is that limited to a certain weight class or no?
At least theoretically, yes. I don't know of any concrete like 205 or anything like that, like any actual established weight limit. Okay. But one of the big things in New Japan is actually the differentiation between the juniors and the heavyweights. Okay. And that's something that they actually get a lot of flack for, and I would say reasonably so, is that while they are kind of remedying that now, like I was saying, like Kushida and Takahashi is so far up on the card in such a big, like, intense, hard-worked match, like, that's huge. But, again, it was just kind of, like, in the basement for a little while. And a great example is that Kushida himself was lobbying to get into the G1 tournament this year. Mm-hmm. But he didn't get in because he's just a junior. And that's a shoot. Really? That's a shoot, bro.
So it does matter.
It matters.
And you said they get flack for it because people aren't given opportunities, or they're pegged to one thing.
Exactly that. Okay. Like, I'm one of them. I wanted Kushida in that G1. Okay. They had Kyle O'Reilly working the junior stuff. People want Kyle O'Reilly in more heavyweight type matches. Yep. Kenny Omega is actually one of the ones who moved from a junior to a heavyweight in New Japan.
So it's possible.
It is possible.
Okay.
But, I mean, Kushida is still a lot smaller than Kenny Omega.
Okay. So I guess it's hard to tell without, like, really looking at their numbers, height and weight.
Yeah. Without, like, a lineup.
Yeah. So a thing that stuck out to me about this match, just, like, first time, because I've seen maybe 2 or 3 New Japan matches before this, so very, very new to this type of product. But something that stuck out to me was the match went 16 minutes and 15 seconds long, but it felt a lot shorter because it was high-paced action right from the start. They didn't really have like the chain kind of opening, feeling each other out.
Yeah.
It was in your face right from the start. Did you feel that way, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of I think what I've come to expect from Kushida.
Okay.
And I should note that I'm actually much more familiar with him than I am Hiromu Takahashi.
Okay.
Because maybe we could get into this now.
Yeah, sure.
Where he's kind of coming from.
Yeah, go for it.
Hiromu Takahashi came from like the New Japan Dojo, and he was a young lion for a while.
So what does that? What does those mean?
Basically, you're coming up basically through like an in-house wrestling school.
Okay.
And then when you're a young lion, typically what'll happen is you're given like very, very basic ring gear, just like black boots, black knee pads, black trunks.
Okay.
And you'll be working typically like these short little exhibition matches, opening up like some of like the smaller and mid-sized shows.
Yeah.
Or you'll be kind of thrown in like a 6-man tag with some veterans.
Okay.
It's just kind of a way to like learn on the fly and
Okay.
give these people like real world experience in wrestling.
So you're a young Padawan in training.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So and then what happens is once you're ready, then you're shipped off like on a learning excursion. So
this is interesting.
yeah, it's Young Lions. It's my brother. So Hiromu Takahashi went to CMLL, which is one of the 2 really big wrestling promotions in Mexico.
Yeah,
It's
and just another example of New Japan like branching out, right?
Yeah,
branching out their brand.
They actually have a really big connection with CMLL.
Do they?
They run
Okay.
some like a series of joint shows every year.
Okay.
Called Fantasticomania, just as an aside.
Yeah.
And it's just a whole series of cards that are mixtures of New Japan guys and luchadors. So that's pretty fun
Probably
stuff.
a lot of high spots in
Yeah.
that. Uh-huh.
So anyway, Takahashi was shipped off to CMLL, where that's kind of where my knowledge of him ends, because I don't really get a chance to watch a lot of CMLL. I don't get a chance to watch much lucha in general.
Okay.
But I do know that he apparently killed it over there. He was involved in a feud with someone named Dragon Lee, and I remember like while it was going on, at least people were saying this is one of the best feuds in wrestling in general,
Really?
like, in years.
Okay.
And that's still a young boy working with Dragon Lee.
So even though they're sent off, the eyes are still on them, right? By your New Japan head booker, or like they're still all kind of under that microscope of, can this guy make it on his own?
Yeah.
Okay.
You'd at least theoretically, you'd at least hope so.
Okay.
That they're not just like left out to dry. But,
Right.
So then, typically, what happens is like you'll put in time. For example, Okada, Kazuchika Okada, he was shipped off to TNA.
So it's not just
It's
you
not
can go anywhere.
It's not always going to be Mexico.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, it usually is just because they do have that relationship, and they
Yeah.
had a relationship with TNA.
Okay.
They don't anymore, but
Right.
they had one.
Okay.
With Takahashi, so he was killing it down in Mexico, came back, worked some Ring of Honor earlier this year, and then he re-debuted in New Japan just at a show called Power Struggle just in November. And he's already at a point where he's, challenging for the junior heavyweight title in a match that, like, the pre-show interactions between the two of them, between Kushida and Takahashi, were just so fire, essentially. Just incredible stuff. So
he's got a lot of momentum.
Yeah,
going
exactly.
Right now. It's interesting to me. It's interesting to me if you want someone to make it in your promotion, you almost send them away instead of keeping them there. I understand the young lion part, but I wonder the psychology of just sending someone away on an excursion to prove yourself and then come back, because you're sending them to a different promotion, right? Where like in a different country where maybe a different style is had, but then expecting them to come back and maybe work your style. Does that seem a little counterproductive? I don't know what the psychology has been.
I do totally get that, but I think it's also a way to kind of cultivate a different style on top of what you've already been taught.
Okay.
So it's not so much that you're unlearning what you already know. I'd say it's more about expansion.
Okay.
And plus, like, while you're going somewhere and you're being forced to work a different style, you're probably going to pick up elements from that,
Right.
and work that into, like, some different kind of hybrid than you had before.
That's true.
So you're going to, like, theoretically, you're going to come back like a more complete, well-rounded worker and somebody who has experience, being someplace where there's a language barrier and you're working with guys who don't speak Japanese.
Right.
And I think that's huge because there's always going to be.
That's a good point.
That's always going to exist on a high level, working with guys who you don't share a native tongue.
It seems like New Japan does a really good job of you're almost representing them in a different country, right? So it seems like they do a really good job of just like cultivating relationships with other companies, with other promotions. But their tech game is struggling, as we talked about. They don't have an app, but they're kind of the anti-WWE, where WWE like just this year started acknowledging that other promotions existed.
Right.
But New Japan is all about that cross promotion.
Yeah.
Which is cool. Anything else about that match that someone just watching it the first time like may not notice, but you want to point out to them?
I would say one of the things to kind of keep in mind is that this has been Kushida's year.
Okay.
In a big way. He worked a series of matches. He had a couple matches against Will Ospreay, who I'd imagine everybody knows about at this point.
Yeah, probably most likely.
Fantastic. Great match against Jushin Thunder Liger. And, the reason a lot of this is kind of notable is just that I think the past 2 or 3 years especially, there haven't been a lot of, a lot of juniors matches that were that high quality.
Okay.
So I think like Kushida kind of this year brought about a kind of resurgence in a way, even though he wanted to move up and do more heavyweight stuff.
Right.
I do think he, to some degree, brought in a junior heavyweight resurgence.
One thing I noticed about this match, that's a good point. One thing I noticed about this match is, and really the entire last 4 matches of New Japan, is how much more realistic the submissions look. Oh. And like, Kushida had that almost. It's basically a Kimura, right? But he calls it the
hoverboard.
The hoverboard lock. But it looked really, the way they were doing it looked really good, almost to the point where I'm like a little mad that Takahashi didn't like. My smarky side is like, Takahashi should tap right now because it looks like it's gonna break off. But yeah, that's just one thing I noticed. That in WWE, sometimes people get lazy with I guess that's a special submission, but really every submission, I guess that's technically supposed to be a rest hold or something to advance the storyline, like looked very shooty. I guess. Would you agree with that?
I would, and I do think it's kind of important to note that isn't necessarily always going to be the case.
Okay.
I would say more often than not, but I do think with like a Wrestle Kingdom being your first show,
yeah,
I do think like these guys were in a way kind of working harder than usual.
Okay.
So
it's good to set that expectation.
Yeah, I think that is something to consider. And if anyone listening, like if this Wrestle Kingdom was your first New Japan show, I'm not saying like, oh, all the other ones are shit. I'm definitely not saying anything like that. But I would say just kind of keep in mind, this is usually where people are busting their ass the hardest.
Yeah. Okay. So we talked about the classes. One thing I wanted to note is I felt like they did a really good job, and I don't know what it is, but I feel like all the belts in the last 4 matches like really felt important. All of them felt almost like nothing lower than an Intercontinental title or a World Heavyweight title. I don't know. Do you have any idea maybe why that I feel that way? Like someone watching this, because I don't know. I remember asking you like during the show, I was like, what would you equate, the junior heavyweight title to? Or in this next match, what would you equate the never openweight title to? And you almost didn't want to say it was like the equivalent of a U.S. title because it's not in WWE. Right. Is there a reason why? Do maybe there's less matches defending it throughout the year and thus they feel more important? Or what would be a reason why watching this, I felt like every belt mattered?
Because I feel like for those 4 belts in particular, I think the wrestlers themselves kind of take it seriously in the sense that, and plus those matches are always going to get time.
Yes.
It's not going to be one of those things where, well, here's kind of it's just a never heavyweight or open weight title match,
Right.
but you wouldn't know that otherwise. You know, it's not something where it's just like this 8-minute TV thing or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
The matches are getting time. The work rate's usually higher.
Okay.
And I think New Japan shot really well too. Like I like all like the kind of well-timed cutaway shots to the belt.
Right.
And plus, I mean, just the caliber of the guys who were working these last 4 matches are just really high.
Okay.
So I think that helps too.
Yeah.
Because I'm gonna go ahead and say not every title in New Japan is very important.
Okay.
Because there were a few title matches in the undercard that we didn't watch.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I would say, yeah, for those titles and for the guys who are currently holding them, they're hard workers. They're taking it seriously. So
yeah.
I mean, that just kind of goes a long way. They're taking it seriously, and the company's letting the matches get time.
Yeah, exactly. That makes sense. So this belt was won by, spoiler alert, if you haven't seen it, then probably shame on you because it's been enough days.
It's been up for a while.
What's his last name? Is it Goto?
Oh, we're talking about the Never Open.
The Never, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Hiroki Goto took home the Never Open Weight title.
And then versus Shibata, who you said, both of these guys are actual lifelong friends, right?
Yeah. Yeah, they grew up together. They're close friends, and it makes for the best kinds of stories when they're a shoot,
right?
Or like when they're not too far removed from a shoot. So.
And they said mentioned they were former tag team champions.
Yeah.
I felt like the entire match was just them trying to outdo each other, like a competition.
Yeah, it was them trying to say, "I'm more of a man than you are."
Right.
Like the huge machismo thing. Like the spots where you get Shibata just kind of sitting cross-legged on the mat, just like letting Goto kick him, just like, I don't give a fuck, dude.
Right.
Like, your kicks aren't doing shit to me.
Right.
Like a lot of that whole thing, and that's kind of what you'd expect from those two guys.
Yeah.
Just them beating the absolute shit out of each other.
It was almost like that one friend that you've known for so long, like you know the type of BS that he's gonna pull, right?
Yeah.
And you're just maybe you've gotten in some like arguments where you maybe crossed the line on some things you said, and it felt like that kind of relationship. Like they were, I don't know. And one guy looked really badass, Shibata,
yeah.
And then one guy looked a little bit. I wouldn't say he's out of shape because they're all in shape, but he was just a little bit heavier set.
Yeah.
And that was the Goto guy.
Yeah.
So it was almost like you had the one, and you told me the Goto. Am I saying that right? Goto.
Yeah, Goto.
He's got the almost the guy who can't win the big one gimmick.
Yeah.
So it was like kind of like your almost chubbier friend. And then like your cool jock, right? And like maybe
it's not so far off.
It's not so far. Maybe these guys used to
be
be friends in like grammar school, and then when you got to high school, Shibata became the cool jock football player, and Goto was like the out of shape, even though he's not the out of shape. I don't know, gamer nerd or something like that. And that's just what it kind of felt like. And then they were like meeting in college or something like that, or at like senior year of high school. And it was all coming to a head. Is that true?
Oh, dude, that's kind of beautiful. Was that all written down in your notes?
A little bit, a couple of the notes. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think that's pretty fair. One thing that is worth noting is that this match wasn't the original plan for Katsuyori Shibata defending his Never Open Weight title.
Yeah.
It wasn't going to be against Goto.
Okay.
It was going to be against this guy named Go Shiozaki from Pro Wrestling Noah.
Okay.
A different promotion.
Right.
They had started in the G1 Climax Grand Finals this year. They started this kind of like interpromotional war that came to a head. And then you had Shibata representing New Japan, Go Shiozaki representing Pro Wrestling Noah. And that was going to be the big match at Wrestle Kingdom.
Okay.
And it wasn't spelled out as such. It wasn't formally announced, but just kind of everybody knew where it was going, and it was leading to that.
Okay.
And that's what people wanted to see.
Right.
So it almost felt like a downgrade when it's like, because kind of what happened was Pro Wrestling Noah got bought out by an IT company.
What? Really?
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So because that happened, their relationship with New Japan kind of came to a halt.
Okay.
So now New Japan's not using Noah guys on their shows.
Okay.
So Goto was just kind of like a last minute replacement, and they just kind of threw some shit together to explain why the match was happening.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
So I didn't even know that going in. But,
Yeah. Well, you wouldn't know it because like the match was just so fucking good that it felt like from the jump, like this is an important match, just from like the outset.
Yeah, I think that then they played up the front storyline to kind of give it more meaning, right?
And the fact that like the matches those two have had against each other in the past are phenomenal. Yeah. Like
so they have history.
Oh yeah, long history. Long brutal history of hitting each other in the jaw. So,
that's another, and I like how you keep bringing up examples of like New Japan working with other promotions, and that's a promotion in their home country.
Yeah.
But it seems like they have that reputation of being open to work with someone if it's best for their own business, right? So.
Yeah, and that's kind of another thing that some people do criticize New Japan for is almost kind of being bullies.
Oh, okay. So the relationships, are they very one-sided towards New Japan? Like
in recent times, they seem to be kind of one-sided.
Okay.
They actually just recently got a little bit better about that. But there was a while where a lot of people were pretty upset about the relationship with Ring of Honor.
Yeah, tell me about that, because that's an interesting one.
And that was just kind of because they would run every once in a while these inter-promotional shows, especially like they would do it in the States, and they'd bring Ring of Honor guys over to Japan. But the New Japan guys were always going over.
Oh, okay.
And so that was kind of
it was all upset. Take, no give.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then they did get better about that in terms of positioning some Ring of Honor guys to kind of do a little bit better.
Right.
So
yeah, if you have this partnership, both sides have to benefit.
Yeah.
But
well, I mean, Ring of Honor was benefiting from bigger houses.
Right, that's true.
Like,
that's true. And just from like having their name associated with, right?
Yeah,
so.
I went to one of the joint promotion shows they did. They ran one out in Chicago Ridge. Like a big field house out there.
Yeah, I wanted. When was that? When did that happen?
It was on Mother's Day, actually, if I recall correctly.
Well, a year ago, right? Or this.
The only time they did it in like Chicago or the Chicagoland area was this year.
Okay.
They have run like joint shows in the past, but in,
so
like,
2016,
New York. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm probably gonna keep calling. I'm probably gonna keep calling last year this year because I'm not accustomed to the whole 2017 yet.
It's weird saying it.
So like, believe me, if I say earlier this year, I mean 2016. I don't mean all this shit happened within the last few days. So yeah, I mean like months ago in 2016.
So how was that joint show?
It was all right.
Yeah.
The booking was terrible.
Okay.
But I mean that especially for the main event, which didn't involve any New Japan guys. So that's a little bit off topic, but I fucking despised the booking of that main event.
Did you?
Like it ruined the show for me and a lot of people. But I mean, what I was kind of getting at with that though is just that it seemed like a lot of people there were there to see the New Japan guys.
Okay.
So I do think that is one area where Ring of Honor kind of gets the rub. Like even if their guys are jobbing to the stars here and there,
right?
They are still getting that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you kind of have to if you're the smaller promotion, right?
Yeah.
That is where the benefit comes with just more exposure, and I guess bigger houses equal bigger payoff for your guys. Yeah. Correct. But then, hey, you gotta lose to the big guy, I guess.
Yeah. But I mean, sometimes there's no shame in that. Like people were mad that Kyle O'Reilly lost to Naito.
Okay.
Naito was the current IWGP Heavyweight Champ at that time.
So it makes sense.
Yeah, it's like, how are you going to get mad about a guy having a competitive match with another promotion's champion?
Right. If anything, that gives him a rub.
That's kind of what I thought, but apparently we're alone there because a lot of people were up in arms, and I'm like, man, that booking makes sense, and it makes both guys look good.
Yeah.
So I don't get it. But I'm getting us way too far.
No, it's cool. I mean, I'm learning a lot. The point is to learn exactly kind of what's going on with these other promotions, right? So that's fine. So then the match after that was...
Oh, wait, Charlie, real quick.
Yeah.
I do want to say, since you are a fresh set of eyes
to the product,
I mean, tell me, how did you like the match?
Specifically the last one that we just talked about, or
Yeah, since we were kind of on topic of the never open weight.
I liked it because I like the story that I said of like the two best friends being angry at each other.
And like in the way that was kind of like made manifest through the in-ring action.
Yes. I felt that out of probably all 4 matches, just sitting down and watching it, that was a storyline that connected with me, I guess, the most.
Okay.
Because the commentators, what the commentators were saying and what was happening in the ring, like that was like a perfect bridge.
Sure.
I felt like. So that match specifically, I felt had just like a really strong story behind it, and that's because I haven't learned about the other stories, but I think that's a good sign that the storytelling was doing its job if a fresh pair of eyes can like understand it.
Cool.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. No, it's a really good question though.
And so this was my second time watching these last 4 matches. I watched all of them. I watched the whole show initially that Wednesday night, and I think I liked this match better the second time around.
Okay.
Because the first time I watched it, I was comparing it to a past match they had, specifically Dominion 2013.
Okay.
Which, it might just be like one of those tricks of memory where you remember things a bit differently than it happened. But I remember that match being the most brutal fucking thing I've ever seen.
The first one
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, to me, like, this one felt a little bit more tame the first time around. But now that I rewatched it, I think, if it was a little bit less stiff, it made up for it in storytelling.
Okay.
Because I thought, now I'm pretty comfortable in saying that I think as a whole package, when it's not just focused on like the brutality of it, I do think this was the better match.
Yeah.
And I really came across with a greater appreciation of it this time.
The second time around.
Yeah.
We probably noticed
really
more things, but yeah, that's a point that we forgot to bring up was how stiff this one was.
Yeah.
I mean, New Japan has a reputation for being very stiff, but there was like 4 Shibata forearms in a row that took me back a second and made me realize, like, is this a shoot? Or what is going on here? But yeah, that was great. Do you have anything else about that match?
Actually, could I get into the history of that title a little bit?
Yeah,
because
I
do think that's an interesting.
I think the more you know facts, the better. Honestly, so let's go for it.
So, Charlie noticed when Hiromu Takahashi won the junior heavyweight title that it was like he was the 74th champion.
Yeah. So a graphic flash across the screen. That was the only numbers that I recognized. It was a 7 and a 4. The rest of it was Japanese, but I think he said it was the 76th, like the 76th guy to win the belt, right? Yeah.
But so compared to that, for the Never belt, I believe it said that Goto is now the 12th.
Yeah, so it was something very low.
So the Never Openweight title is a very recent invention. It came to being in the year 2012. So it has a very short history, and initially its purpose was to like truly be like an open weight kind of belt.
Okay.
Like what they wanted to have happen was they wanted like, some of the bigger guys. I'm gonna try to give examples, but it won't mean a whole lot. Like a Tomohiro Ishii, or like even a Bad Luck Fale. Like they wanted them to be working against. He's a Bullet Club
guy, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. They wanted like. So you have matches with those big guys taking on people the size of a Kota Ibushi or a Kushida.
Okay.
Like they wanted, since there is that heavy distinction between the junior heavyweight and the heavyweights, they wanted a belt that could kind of bridge that.
Okay.
But that hasn't really been the way that it's turned out so far. Because the title, like the Never Openweight title, has kind of become like the beat the shit out of each other title, as a lot of people call it. Because Shibata held it for most of this year. Before that, you had Ishii with a long title run, who we aren't getting to tonight, but he is another big stalwart of the company, and just he's called the Stone Pitbull, and that's because he looks like a pit bull.
Okay.
So like it's just become that kind of belt. But what's interesting is that. If I could talk a little bit about it, the show the night after Wrestle Kingdom New Year's Dash.
Yep.
We had something happen where in a tag match, Juice Robinson,
Yep.
formerly CJ Parker
In NXT,
pinned Goto in a tag match, then challenged for the never openweight title.
That night?
They're going to be doing it at the next it's called the New Beginnings show. It's happening in next month in February.
Okay.
So we're going to be getting a Juice Robinson versus Hiroki Goto never openweight title match.
Is that interesting? Is that an interesting match?
That's incredibly interesting to me because Juice Robinson is somebody who's been busting his ass this year. One of the most improved wrestlers you're liable to see.
Really? Okay.
Because I'm going to be honest, I thought he was trash for like a long period of time.
When you were watching him as CJ Parker, you thought he was trash?
And even like when he first got to New Japan,
I
was like, why are they wasting time and money on this jabroni?
Yeah.
This guy's awful. He'll never be anything. And I hate to bury guys, so I'm sorry I had to say that.
Hey, at Two Heels and a Face, we're all about respecting your opinion, and wrestling is a buffet. So if you don't want to drink the juice from the buffet, then you don't have to drink the juice.
But you know what? Now it's all I'm drinking. Now I'm all about that juice. Because Juice Robinson has turned everything around. He's just clearly working so hard, just dripping charisma these days.
Yeah.
Dude's fantastic. He carried Cody Rhodes.
That's what you told me.
Carried Cody Rhodes.
Mm-hmm.
So to have this, anyway, I digress, as I do. So to have this matchup, Juice Robinson versus Hiroki Goto, I think this kind of harkens back to the original purpose of the title, which is to give like new, interesting matchups, things that you aren't going to normally see, guys that you aren't normally going to see.
Because of those class barriers.
Because of class barriers, because of experience barriers. You look at a guy like Juice Robinson, he hasn't had nearly as many years in the business as Goto.
Right.
But, here they are kind of as equals fighting for one belt.
Mm-hmm.
So I do think this is the start of something interesting. And I also am going to go out on a limb and say that since Kushida lost the junior heavyweight belt, I think that's him moving up.
I was just about to say that. I honestly was just about to say it because that's what we were talking about. Kushida was pissed that he's stuck in the junior heavyweight title bracket or division, I guess you could say. But this is that's a belt where he could move up. And in, like you said, the belts were defended in order of descending importance. Yeah. Ascending importance if you had to peg them as that. Yeah. So that would mean Kushida would have the opportunity to go one more match up to be the third to last match.
So that's really what I'm anticipating happening. I think Juice Robinson loses to Goto.
Okay.
But I think a loss doesn't hurt him that much because I think that's Juice Robinson on a higher stage. Yeah. That's him challenging for a singles belt.
Yeah.
So I think even if he's competitive with Goto, his stock rises. And then I think the next challenger is Kushida, which I personally would be over the moon excited for.
That's great. I like how they just give that opportunity. That's probably something that they created because fans were saying, like, this isn't fair, right? Yeah. Like, if the guy's got talent, then he should be able to challenge for any belt he wants. Like, make it work in the storyline, make it believable. So they kind of created this. Why is the word never used in it?
I'm pretty sure it's an acronym that I used to know the meaning to. I admittedly don't know right now.
No, it's fine.
But, yeah.
Great. Okay. Our second to last match on the card was IWGP, which is for those who don't know, and I had to look this up, but that is like the governing party of New Japan, right? Yeah. So IWGP Intercontinental Championship. Naito, right? Naito, excuse me, versus not Takahashi, but Tanahashi, who's 40 years old and ripped out of his mind still, who's still killing it. And Naito is part of a heel stable. Say their name. I don't know.
Los Ingobernables de Japón.
Okay.
And sorry for not having a good Mexican accent.
That was the CMLL stable, right? Originally.
Yeah, Los Ingobernables, like we'll call it the governing body of Los Ingobernables. It started in CMLL, and Naito's involvement came from him doing a tour down there.
Yep.
This wasn't even him as a young lion or anything like
Okay.
that.
It wasn't his
It was
excursion?
just straight up. No.
Okay.
He did have his excursion was in Mexico, but it was years before
Okay.
the Los Ingobernables thing. So yeah, while he was a babyface before he went to Mexico, came back a heel.
Right.
He got in with a bad crowd. Became ungovernable, which is what ingobernable means. Ungovernable.
Okay.
He became ungovernable and turned into a real piece of shit. Started attacking the referee Red Shoes.
Dude, Red Shoes is my favorite. I think if I had to take one thing out of watching Wrestle Kingdom is I love Red Shoes. Red Shoes is a referee who wears red boots.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
For those and he was getting pushed around during matches and just took it like a champ.
Yeah, it's not fair, but yeah, Red Shoes is the ultimate professional.
Do most people when they go on excursions? So you said Naito went on excursion and then just became a heel in Mexico. Are most people that are coming, because that's like the old school Vince McMahon heel, or you could even say like before Vince McMahon. If they're a foreigner, they're a bad person, right? So right? So every foreigner is always pegged as like a heel, right? You see it now with Rusev, but Rusev does a good job, and the Daivari guy, the new cruiserweight, like, oh, this guy, he's representing Tehran Iran, like, let's put the garb on him and let's just make him a heel, right? It's so like, it's just. It's so old in its ways.
Yeah.
Is that kind of how he was viewed when he came over there? Do you know? So
I'd imagine. I admittedly don't know. Okay. I do know that like if you are interested and you do have New Japan World, if you want to see some of Naito's stuff in Mexico, they do have a couple matches up there.
Oh, do they?
And that is fairly uncommon to have like the kind of interpromotional stuff up there.
Mm-hmm.
But you can actually watch like Naito's like burgeoning heel ways down in Mexico if you're interested in that kind of transformation. But so like essentially like if you weren't following the CMLL stuff at all though, all you knew was that Naito was this babyface who could never fully get over.
Okay.
Like he would have like these pushes that would just kind of start and stop.
Mm-hmm.
He was somebody that like the fans largely never fully got behind. It seemed like the front office never fully got behind him.
Okay.
Like they thought he was the guy, then maybe not. So then he went off to Mexico for this little tour, came back, did the whole heel thing, killed it.
Okay.
Like made the heel thing his own, you know, and transferred just from being a part of Los Ingobernables to now being the leader of Los Ingobernables de Japón. The Ungovernables of Japan.
The Ungovernables of Japan.
And once he formed this, he brought in former Young Lions who were coming back from their excursions to join him. So every member,
to the dark side.
Yeah, every member of Los Ingobernables is a young lion who just got back and got a new gimmick. They're part of Los Ingobernables. They're
nice.
They're dark and moody. And
so he's giving people a rub, new guys who are coming to prove themselves.
Absolutely.
One thing I noticed is my coffee maker is going off, if you can hear that in the background. But one thing I noticed is the way he mistreats the belt, where he just kind of like throws it up in the air and throws it in the ring. I thought that was a good heelish tactic that I don't really see anyone do right now. He'll just like, this doesn't even mean anything to me.
Yeah, it's a lot of disrespect in general. Like if you notice too, he took his time. He comes to the ring in a suit.
Yes.
In a full suit. And he takes his time getting the suit off.
He does. Not like Cesaro, who rips it off.
Exactly. It is the polar opposite of Cesaro.
Yeah.
And kind of what he's just doing there is like, I don't value your time. You're just going to stand here and watch me while I like unbutton every button as like meticulously and slowly and deliberately as I possibly can.
Yep.
Like, I don't give a shit about this. I'm just here.
Yep. One thing I liked about the match is during the match, both of the wrestlers, Naito and Tanahashi, got greedy with like their second finisher, and it ended up costing them. So I thought that was a cool thing. And then I have a note down here about just because I felt like, I don't know, how many times a year, it's a good question for you, how many times a year do you think the IWGP Intercontinental title is defended?
I would say more often than the heavyweight title.
More often than a heavyweight title?
Yeah.
Is it once a month or is it less than once a month?
All right. One of the things about New Japan is that it doesn't follow kind of like the same schedule as like a WWE.
Yeah.
It doesn't do the whole thing where there's like weekly episodic, the longest running weekly episodic.
Okay, let's not get started that.
It doesn't really do it that way. So it can kind of differ.
Okay.
There are going to be some months that are pretty quiet.
Uh-huh.
Like I don't think there was an intercontinental title defense or a heavyweight title defense in the month of December at all.
Okay.
I think the last one went back to early November.
Okay.
The last like big titles were defended was early November until Wrestle Kingdom.
Okay.
But then there are also going to be months where they might have a couple defenses.
I think that the reason I brought this up, and because I saw a lot of creative and innovative spots, and I think most in this match. That's the reason why I wrote it down. But I feel that one thing I already kind of respect about New Japan is it's not like the content is not oversaturated, and I feel that WWE may be getting that way because of like the brand split and just multiple pay-per-views. I know they're different shows, but and that just might be another. If the belt isn't defended that often, it might be another. Like these matches do feel more important because they are for a belt that maybe hasn't been defended in a month or so. Instead of like Intercontinental title that might be defended 2 times in a month.
Right. And one of the other things that I think is interesting is that I mentioned this to Chuck while we were watching. I'm not sure if I mentioned it on the podcast yet. But you can have shows, like mid-size shows, like the equivalent of like a mid-size pay-per-view, where the Intercontinental belt is going to headline the show.
Yeah.
So it's called upon to like have serious drawing power.
Okay.
So I think that kind of makes for an interesting dynamic too, just because like a headlining match is inherently going to be different from a semi-main or something further down. So I think that can kind of keep things fresh too.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. An Intercontinental match that headlines a show is getting compared to the rest of the matches that are probably on the card that night, right? Because that's usually because when people tell me that WWE isn't competitive, or wrestling in general isn't competitive, I say that's not true. The people who are in the ring wrestling each other are trying to outdo the match that was before them and the match that's going to be after them, right? So you're kind of inherently comparing matches in the same show. Like, what was the best match on the card? What was the best match on the show? So, so to your point, then, if the Intercontinental title is headlining a show, then they're just going to step it up one more notch to that level, and try to be the headliner and steal that show instead of like being second or third to go on a different show.
And I do think I'm going to go out on a limb and say that this match could have headlined most shows.
Okay.
Like, one, the drawing power in this match was ridiculous, which they did not mention on commentary, but they did mention drawing power in a different match on commentary, which I found kind of weird. Uh-huh. But the drawing power in this match is insane. Hiroshi Tanahashi headlined the last 6 Wrestle Kingdoms.
That's insane.
That is insane.
That's headlining 6 WrestleManias in a row.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah, that's the comparison.
Yeah.
Like, he was the face of the company for the past...
The face that runs the place.
10 years, yeah. So, it's really pretty... I mean, there were even talks of, will the Intercontinental belt... Will that take the main event over the IWGP heavyweight match?
Really?
Like, there were talks of, like, there was, like, a fan vote. Like, I think an unofficial one, there was, like, a fan vote where it was, like, should the Intercontinental match be headlining? Just because, like, these guys, Tanahashi is the ace, the consummate ace, even though he's trying to take a little bit more of, like, a backseat kind of role.
Right.
And Naito... Los Ingobernables de Japón are just so over right now.
Okay.
The merchandise is ridiculous.
You said there would be Bullet Club in merch in the past however many months.
Maybe don't quote me on that, because
I
am pretty sure that's the case, but since I'm not 100% sure, I don't want to like throw that out
but
there, I do think so.
That's a stat that might jump out to someone who doesn't know a ton about New Japan. Like, I know everyone has a Bullet Club shirt. Everyone and their mother has a Bullet Club shirt.
But. And honestly, if you pay attention, like if you look at the crowd at all on this show, you're going to see a lot of Los Ingobernables merch.
Okay.
Like, especially like when you know like the kind of logos and insignia to look for. You're gonna be
Right.
like, yeah, like all of these people are wearing Los Ingobernables stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like this whole row is wearing like masks like Bushi or like the kind of masks that Naito comes out in.
Right.
So they're huge merch sellers and incredibly popular. There are a lot of calls coming for like a lot of people in the States, it seems at least, want Naito to be the top guy now in New Japan.
Really?
Like over an Okada, over a Tanahashi, over an Omega. They want him to be the guy.
He was more interesting to me than Okada was.
Naito?
Yeah. Naito was more interesting to me than Okada was. Okada seemed a little bit too, I don't want to, like, maybe the rich kid who just has always gotten his way.
Yeah.
And, it isn't really, like, that talented, but maybe, like, knew someone in the business. I'm not pegging him as that, but that's the vibe he gave off, where Naito seemed just more, like, genuine charisma, kind of.
Yeah. Well, and plus I think Naito is really, just really grateful to be where he is.
Okay.
Like, as I mentioned before, like, there are shows, I'm trying to think of specific examples, but there were shows I was watching not too long ago where he was the babyface and he was getting booed.
Oh, okay.
Just because the crowd didn't give a shit about it.
Right. So he's got a little bit more of a chip on his shoulder, maybe?
Yeah,
okay.
that's the perfect way to put it, actually. Like, he came back, got this great gimmick that he himself, like, sure, it came from another promotion, but he put his stamp on it.
Right.
He made it his own, so just absolutely killing it. So I think, like, incredible levels of motivation from him, just wanting to like kind of keep that.
Yeah, he's hungry.
So, yeah, exactly.
I think it showed through in this match, and I thought that one thing was cool about this match and all the 4 matches that I watched, and I don't know, I wouldn't like every match to have it, and once again, it might not be every show that this happens, New Japan show, but every match that we watched, there was a focus on a body part. Everyone.
Yeah. That's something I noticed when watching this show. That is not the norm, though.
Okay, it's not the norm.
Yeah,
okay.
It was. It wasn't even something I noticed the first time I watched it either. So that was a very astute observation on your part.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, no, I didn't notice that the first time around. Like, I knew it was. I noticed it very much in this match the first time around.
Right.
The knee work from both of them.
Yes.
But yeah, I didn't notice that it was a running theme until I rewatched
it.
Yeah. So,
but this one was super interesting because this is why. And with wrestling, as you know, it's a lot of the same stuff, but there's always a tiny little different spin put on it that makes it new, right? So in this match, they were both working on each other's knees. So they both had bad knees. So they're like kayfabe bad knees. So they're throwing each other into the ropes, and they like almost can't complete the spot because as they're running, they're like limping. So they're basically running the ropes with limps, both of them, which I thought was unique. That doesn't happen enough,
right?
I think if you're really trying to sell a knee. And also then the spot that everyone does now, which is the I'm going to stand here and forearm you, and then you forearm me back. Yeah. But they were doing it with knee kicks, which was different. It was great. So those are 2 really new things that I haven't seen before.
One interesting note about this match is that in the G1 Climax Finals in 2013, it was Tanahashi versus Naito. Tanahashi was working on Naito's leg the whole match. Naito stopped selling.
Really?
And like people just like despised Naito for that match just because like his limb selling was just so bad.
Okay.
So I think there was some serious redemption at play on this show.
Okay, that's a good fact.
I thought both men sold the limbs really fucking well.
I agree. And you keep going back to 2013. Is there
a good year?
Really good year for New Japan?
Really good year for New Japan. I have a lot of specific 2013 match recommendations. The 2013 G1 was the best tournament I've ever seen.
Okay.
2013 was a really, really good year.
You want to spit out a couple more just for the listeners so they can jot them down?
Match recommendations?
Yeah.
If you have not seen this match, I think everyone should, and that is Shinsuke Nakamura, who you're all familiar with, versus Kota Ibushi, who you're all familiar with, and Easy Cell, their 2013 G1 match.
Okay.
One of my top 5 favorite matches of all time, any promotion.
Wow.
Love that match.
That's coming from someone who's been watching wrestling your whole life, right?
I was lapsed for a little while.
We all were lapsed. We all were lapsed. I talked about this. I was on the Last Mark Standing podcast as a guest probably like November 2016 or something like that. And there's always that gap with people our age who are like 26, 27, 28, like in that mid to high 20s. There was always that lapse. So you're not alone in that sense. But someone who's watched a lot of wrestling, any top 5 match is just going to be good. Right? For someone who's a wrestling fan.
I think if you're talking to any like serious wrestling fan and they consider it like one of their top 5 matches, that's kind of something that you just go out and watch.
Right. So
even if you don't like it and it's not your style, like I think that's just something you need to kind of see. Just
that's a good point.
This is out there.
Right. That's a good point. You're probably gonna like it, right? If you're a wrestling fan.
And I think especially, I mean, people know Nakamura. Mm-hmm. Like if you like Shinsuke Nakamura. Even if you haven't seen Kota Ibushi, like even if you didn't watch CWC or anything like that, if you like Nakamura at all, you're going to adore this match.
Okay.
If you like both guys, you're gonna like this match so much that you're gonna just quit your job,
quit your day,
and you're like, or at least take a week off. You're gonna take a week off and just spend that time thinking about how good that match was. Just because, like, you physically cannot bring yourself to do anything else.
Okay, but think about that match.
Yeah, I love that match.
Can we see this right now? Can I see this right now on the $10 subscription I just purchased to New Japan World?
You paid $8.71.
$8.71. Excuse me.
You sure can.
999 yen.
Yeah, right. It's 999 yen, so it will fluctuate based on the conversion rate.
Yeah.
The dollar is strong right now, and the yen not so much.
Educate the people.
That's conversion rates? God, I hope you guys realize that conversion rates exist in different forms of currency. But so the price will fluctuate on a monthly basis, which can make things kind of weird when like you have it set to just auto.
Right.
But I mean, realistically, it's not going to be such like a massive stretch. No. I don't think I've ever spent more than $10.
Okay.
It'll usually stay in the $9 range. But it is 100% available to watch on New Japan World. One resource that I do want to kind of put out there,
go for it,
is this Google Doc, and it's run by Signor Lariato.
Yes.
Twitter.
Very popular Twitter handle.
Very popular Twitter account. He was Mr. Lariato till WWE got his Twitter account banned.
Yeah, do you know why that happened?
Posting GIFs of WWE shows.
Oh, okay.
It was just like
live shows?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, makes sense.
So what he did, I think he's still the one maintaining it. Like, I want to give credit where it's due. I think he's the only person behind it, but if there are other people working on it, I apologize for not giving them a shout out as well.
Yeah.
But what he did is he's maintaining this Google Doc that lists hundreds at this point of recommended matches to watch on New Japan World.
Oh, great.
And what's interesting about it is that it has a direct link to it. So it's basically just like this comprehensive list of all these matches you should see, and it's color coded. So if it's just like a regular like white row, it means like it's a match. Yeah, you could check it out. Nothing that sets the world on fire, but like a decent match. Then like if it's like that kind of like reddish purplish color, it's like 4-star match.
Okay.
And if it's gold, then it's one of those like you should just stop what you're doing and watch this match.
Okay.
So like it's such a good resource if you're a new fan, or like maybe you watched like from all of like 2016, but you haven't seen shows from before.
Right.
You could just do like a quick like Control F. Like, oh, I want to watch more Shibata matches. Control F, type in Shibata. It'll bring up all the Shibata entries.
And the links are right there.
And the links are right there. You don't gotta like mess around with anything. And you can see like, oh, this match is gold. That means this is the one I'm going to watch first.
Right. That's a user experience that we've all grown accustomed to now. Immediate gratification. Yeah. Click the link and you're right there.
And I also need to say that it is more that like fan-made Google Doc is more user-friendly than New Japan's website.
Yes, so, like we mentioned before. Like we mentioned before, New Japan they need to upgrade their tech.
They do.
They need to upgrade their partnership game. Seems strong. Maybe a little one-sided, but strong. But they need like a kick in the ass on the tech content and user experience.
Yeah.
Like, so I want an app I can watch on my Roku. Great. The last match, before we get into, I want to get into your wrestling theme list because you've been talking it up since you stepped foot here in my place. But the last match was controversial, right? Main event.
Yeah, I would say so.
It was I don't know his first name, but I'm just gonna say Okada.
Yeah, Okada.
Versus Kenny Omega for the IWGP Heavyweight Championship. So this match was very long, probably longer than WrestleMania's main event this past one, which went like 37 minutes.
This match went. Correct me if I'm wrong, or don't actually correct me if I'm wrong. But I believe it went 46.
46. Yeah. That's very long.
Very long.
Very long.
Very long match.
But I never once during the match where I was like, man, this is going way too long. I was into it the whole time.
Okay.
Yeah. That's just and I'm giving my perspective from someone who's watching. That was probably what my seventh New Japan match I've ever watched total. I never felt like it was boring or like, hey, let's speed this up. Really, two really crazy spots.
Yes.
Two really crazy spots. Also, just to set some expectations, a Japanese table is very thin, and it's basically like, you're the wooden bench you had in your high school locker room. It's not even a large table, but there was an insane back body drop to the outside, and Omega went through the table, and I thought he was hurt.
Yeah, I watched the show for the first time alone, and it caused me to yell out loud when that spot happened.
It makes you, it's a spot where you just go, oh, you just gasp.
It's so unexpected. Like, in the retrospect, you could see it coming, like, the way it was set up and everything, but it's just like, I guess it's just in your brain, you're thinking, they wouldn't make somebody take a back body drop.
That's what, and that's where you're talking about the other spot, too. Tell them about the Dragon Suplex.
Yeah, the Avalanche Dragon Suplex. Kenny Omega Dragon Suplexes Okada off the top rope. Just drops him on his fucking head in one of the most...
Yes.
I can only say one of the most dangerous spots in this match because there were so many dangerous spots in this match.
There were.
But it was brutal. And it's one of those spots, I think like the exact way I described it to Chuck earlier is, you go to a wrestling show or you watch one on TV and they're setting up for this big spot off the top rope where like maybe a guy's going to like hit his finish or something off, and it's not going to happen. You know that like one of the guy's just going to push the other guy off the top rope, then do like a diving crossbody or something.
They're going to play it safe.
Exactly, because it would just be too dangerous to hit the move that they're hinting at. But no, they deliver on this one against
they
all
drop a person on their head.
It's just it's brutal. I mean,
it's cringeworthy. Anytime in wrestling, as you know, like if head and neck is involved, like it makes you like cringe up into a little ball and just pray to God that the person like can survive through the match, right? But to compare it to some matches that were supposed to be brutal at this past WrestleMania, that those spots are like below any type of risk that they took, like out of the water.
Yeah.
Like if you want intense in-ring action, this would be your show.
Yeah, let's be real though. Nobody should be taking those bumps.
No.
Nobody should be taking
wouldn't recommend anyone in the world to take that bump because I wouldn't really even wish death upon my worst enemies.
And all the knees to Okada's head.
Oh my God.
Stiff knees to Okada's head.
I didn't even know what Kenny Omega was doing when he was like pointing his gun.
Yeah.
When he was like with his hand or putting his hand into the gun.
Not an actual gun.
Not an actual gun.
The match didn't get that dangerous.
Y'all. But then he did like a sprinting, almost like Randy Orton punt, but with a knee. And that happened probably 4 times during the match,
if not more.
Yeah.
Well, it was like a Bomaye, like a
Nakamura. Yeah. But it was. I mean, it was strong style. It was stiff. So like, and I'm sure like if you're watching, or excuse me, if you're listening and you don't know too much about New Japan, like, but just know that it has a reputation of being stiff, like this match delivered on that. For sure.
Yes.
100%. Like that, probably Kenny Omega's knees and Shibata's forearms were the stiffest strikes that I saw in these last 4 matches. But completely delivered on the in-ring action and the riskiness of the spots, and like that is just something that people crave that WWE doesn't necessarily deliver, which is smart. But then also, what do you want to see, right? Do you want to see high risky spots, or
Yeah, I think
it's your preference?
This also isn't a match you can have all the time.
No.
If every main event was a 46-minute match where guys are killing each other, eventually you'd grow very much desensitized to it.
Right.
And they would just start to feel formulaic. I thought there were a lot of spots in this match that I found genuinely surprising.
Okay.
Which isn't something I can say all that often.
Okay.
And I thought it was consistently exciting. But for me personally, it was not my match of the night.
What was your match? To wrap up, our Wrestle Kingdom experience together. Did I see your match of the night?
Yes.
Okay. What would you say your match of the night? Or the one, like, if you had to recommend one out of this show to go.
Ooh, that's a different question.
That's a different question. Okay, so let's just do match of the night. Let's just do match of the night.
While I do feel like I need to put over pretty strongly that the Kenny Omega Kazuchika Okada match, from a physical standpoint, is one of the most impressive things that I've seen.
Yeah.
Ever. But however, in terms of storytelling and just loving a match start to finish, my match of the night was Naito versus Tanahashi.
Okay.
That was my match of the night. And that was true the first time around. I thought it may change the second time around, but it just kind of hammered it home. That was still my match of the night.
Great.
I loved that match, start to finish. I thought everything they did worked. Everything they did made sense. I love that match.
So new person that you've just met, they say, "Hey, Greg, tell me about New Japan. What one match that I should watch on the Wrestle Kingdom 11 card?"
Omega Okada.
And that just encompasses everything that represents New Japan as a promotion.
Yeah, and plus I think, honestly, I think that the Tanahashi Naito match is a bit better appreciated if you're already familiar with both guys.
Okay.
It's one of those kinds of matches.
Right.
So I think, for a new fan, I would say that Omega Okada is.
But set your expectation that this is the pinnacle of it.
Yeah.
Not every show is
exactly,
going to be like
exactly.
this.
Like that's just completely insane. It's not like you're not going to see that same match next month.
No.
So
I hope no one gets dragon sleepered on the top of their neck and head like that before again. And I'm glad he's okay. I think so. Is he okay, Okada?
He worked the next night. Yeah.
If anyone doesn't know what a dragon sleeper suplex is, your hands are basically up in a full Nelson.
Full Nelson, yeah.
And it's straight backwards.
Yeah.
Intense. So, so I hope that you learned a thing or two. I learned a thing or two.
I hope.
Sitting here with you for, like 3 hours, just asking you questions, and it's really interesting. And I can definitely say that I will look into more New Japan. So I hope the listener that you've learned just some new insights and some new reasons behind why certain things are done in a certain way, and that there is something else at the buffet table for you if you're just kind of sick of the type of content that WWE is pushing out, or you just want like a new change of pace, right?
Yeah. And I think that's the point. We're not trying to bury any promotions.
We're not.
And like this isn't like a claim like, oh well, New Japan Pro Wrestling is objectively the best wrestling promotion in the world. I'm not trying to say anything like that.
Not at all.
It's just exactly. It's exactly that. If you watch the show and you're not sure where to go from there, honestly, I'm totally comfortable, willing, and looking forward to recommending matches and just kind of putting things into motion.
Yeah.
And I'd also like to kind of give like a plug.
Yeah.
Just like because I think there are a lot of really good resources out there.
Okay.
And I'm a big fan of kind of giving visibility to people who are providing good content.
Put people over.
So there is. Can I put over a rival podcast though?
Oh no!
I'm being facetious.
No, go for it. I have a lot. I'll give wrestling podcast recommendations all day. I've done it before. So.
I mean, because your podcast is so popular that
we're booming, right? Yeah.
There's a podcast called New Japan Purocast.
Okay.
And Puro, Puro, and it's strictly a New Japan podcast by people who are enthusiastic, very much knowledgeable.
Okay.
I think that's a really good way to just kind of just get additional insight.
Mm-hmm. Get your feet wet a little bit.
And plus, I mean, you could just go back and listen to prior episodes where they're giving more context on things. And there's also from Voices of Wrestling, who you may be familiar with.
That sounds familiar.
You're probably familiar with.
Is that a podcast too?
It's like a network of podcasts, and it's like like a standalone like website.
Okay. Voices of Wrestling.
They have a New Japan Year in Review ebook.
Ebook? That's different. I've never seen a type of wrestling content in ebook.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
I admittedly did not purchase the 2016 one, but I did purchase the 2015 one way back when.
Okay.
And it has a lot of just really valuable content, information, kind of like, essentially it's just such a good resource if you're new to this promotion.
Yep. And
you're looking at like this list of names and faces and guys where it's like, oh, I remember that one match I really liked, but I don't know anything else.
Right.
I mean, it's an easy place where everything's just kind of right there.
Okay.
It's an English New Japan resource, an English language New Japan resource.
Okay.
So it's just a quick and easy way to kind of get acquainted with things.
Great. And always ask questions to Greg. At GregNasty on Twitter.
At GregNasty on Twitter. I will happily engage with you, not get engaged to you. You fucker. Leave me alone. But no, I will. I'm legitimately. I look forward to like recommending matches and things like that.
Yes. Greg will converse with you if you
sure.
open up to him.
And especially like when I know kind of like a little bit about like what kind of stuff people like, I like to just be like, oh, I think you'd like this.
Right.
So, yeah, happy to do that. And plus, I mean, if I did fuck something up, you can just tell me I messed up if you're just sitting there listening and you're just being a smart. And you're like, oh, Greg, you said this thing, but really it's this. You can tell me that on Twitter as well.
Yeah. But hey, nobody's perfect. And
I'll just block you.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. I've not blocked. I've never blocked anyone on Twitter.
No, neither.
And I'm actually a really kind person that you can talk to.
Definitely. Yeah. Greg is our NJPW consultant here at Two Heels of Face. Dubbed you that, so you have to accept that title.
That makes it an official title.
Yeah. You're the ungovernable consultant.
I am truly ungovernable.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for listening to this episode and being a part of the Two Heels and a Face .2 period, or our transition period, where we are going to start ramping up this podcast more often and do at least 2 podcasts a month. So thank you so much for joining us for this episode. I hope you learned a lot about New Japan Pro Wrestling that will now continue to educate you and continue conversations that you're having with other wrestling fans. That's what we want. Wrestling is a buffet. Everyone takes it differently and likes different things. I do not watch a lot of New Japan Pro Wrestling, but now I probably will because Greg is a New Japan Pro Wrestling connoisseur and aficionado, and he has educated me on that. So I hope you learned a lot of new things about New Japan Pro Wrestling. To listen to us more, we're on SoundCloud, so you can search for Two Heels and a Face on SoundCloud, or www.soundcloud.com/Two Heels and a Face. That's the number 2. Heels and a Face, all one word. We're on Twitter at that same handle, Two Heels and a Face, all one word, with the number 2 starting. We're getting on iTunes, and we are going to be ramping up this podcast more frequently. I know there's some people out there who have noticed our lack of exposure or our lack of production, you could say, at the early start of January 2017. I can surely tell you that we are going to be transitioning into higher production and at least do 2 podcasts a month. So thank you for sticking with us during this transition period. And we're going to be churning out a lot of good content for you. We're going to be getting a domain name and doing a medium.com publication. So thank you so much for your commitment with staying with us. Please interact with us on Twitter. If you would like to write something for our upcoming publication, and you have some thoughts in your head, you just want to get on paper, please email us at twoheelsandaface@gmail.com or slide into our DMs on Twitter, and we can talk about this article that you want to write. It has to be of good and high quality, and it has to be non-judgmental, because that's the way we like to do things here at Two Heels and a Face. Wrestling is a buffet. Everyone takes different things from the buffet line. Everyone watches wrestling differently. Everyone likes it for different reasons. And we don't discriminate. So As long as we approve of that article and you run it past us, it can go on Two Heels in the Face publication, which will be on medium.com. Also, please reach out to us if you want to be a guest on this podcast. We can talk further about that. But once again, thank you so much for listening. And I hope that you have learned something. And I hope that we can continue our conversations moving forward about wrestling. Have a good day.